harness is complete and your triceps pad has been fabricated, we're going to have to connect the harness to the socket. And if you think back of how this all connects and the purpose of the different pieces, what you'll find is a lot of students will start by putting the socket on and then working their way up the arm. If you think what the purpose of the axilla loop is, which is here, so what's its purpose? It's the anchor. That's the foundation for the rest of the harness to hold things in the correct position. So the first step that we'll do is fixing the axilla loop so that the northwestern ring is where? Towards the contralateral side and below C7. So we have this set up so that the inverted Y strap is going to be going over the affected side. In this case, it's going to be a right prosthesis. The axilla loop is going around the left arm, and then the control strap is going lower right side. So we'll place this on the patient. And we'll adjust our 4-bar buckle so that the position of the northwestern ring is towards the contralateral side and below C7. So you can put a little tension on this as you are tightening it up to see where it's actually going to go, because this is going to go to the inverted Y. The inverted Y will go to the triceps cuff. Triceps cuff is going to go down to the socket. So we have to start with our anchor. And notice how he adjusted his arm, gave a little bit more slack in there, so we'll readjust. We want this to be snug so you don't have a whole bunch of extra motion necessary to operate in your functional envelope. Once I have it in the position I want, I'll go back through the 4-bar buckle and lock it in that position so that when I pull on this, it won't pull the strap loose. So this is still towards the unaffected side and below C7. So we'll move over to, let's rotate sideways, the inverted Y. And we'll tighten that one up. We want the inverted Y to split around the height of the axilla. So once we have that position, we'll lock down that strap. So we have it nice and taut, it's going down, it's splitting at the axilla. Put the triceps cuff where you'd like it on the person's arm. Hopefully you put it over the triceps. So I guess technically speaking, triceps cuff would go all the way around circumferentially and triceps pad just goes on the back of it. So I place this on the patient's arm and then run my straps around either side, putting a little tension on, and then I'll put a dot where I want the rivets to be. So I want a rivet in the top corner, and then put that mark on the triceps pad, and then immediately do the same thing. Making sure not to mark their clothes. Patients don't like it when you draw on their clothes. So the next step is to rivet these two in place. axilla loop that's holding the northwestern ring on the contralateral side below C7 so it's not pushing his neck forward, giving him a hunchback or hyperkyphosis. We have the inverted Y going over and providing suspension to the triceps cuff that's not falling down. It is splitting at the level of the axilla. The next step is to connect the socket to the triceps cuff with flexible hinges, which will use a 1/2 inch dacron. We can hold it up here just to get an approximate length so we don't have too much waste. So we'll have one on the lateral side and it'll connect there. Straighten your arm back out. And notice how it straightened out, it pulled this nice and tight. And that's going to provide suspension and hold this on because our patients won't have that bulbous fist holding the socket on. So we'll cut 2 flexible hinges, we'll rivet it at one side, and then we'll put the socket on and see where the second rivet needs to go. And then we'll put a dot on the dacron, put a hole in the plastic, and rivet it in place, and we'll try it on again to make sure everything's lined up properly. To the triceps cuff, and now we're going to connect it to our socket. Northwestern ring below C7 towards the contralateral side. Suspension straps provided by the inverted Y that splits at the level of the axilla. It goes down, connects to the triceps cuff, providing suspension of the socket with flexible hinges that bend. The last thing to rivet is our leather crossbar strap, and you'll notice that the hole in it is off-centered. So when you fold it over, so that the rivet goes through there, you'll use a copper rivet on this, that the slit will be exposed on the back of the triceps cuff. So the cable is going to come up to the crossbar and then over to the control strap. When riveting, we'll use a burr so that we can actually hold the leather down. So when you're using a copper rivet, you want to round the head of it. So you use it on a concave head. Sometimes they'll have a hole drilled in the back of the vise. You'll place it on that concave surface, hit it, and bevel the edge. That way, when it goes through the triceps cuff, it will end up setting flat against it and you won't have any edge pressure. Put a concave head on it. By placing it on that surface, holding it down, hitting it, and it will end up making a round versus that. Make it look like you're checking for is to connect our base plate, which will have a rubber disc underneath of it to help hold our retainer in place. And the retainer will be connected to the cable housing. So we're going to place the base plate on the lateral side of the socket over the belly of the brachioradialis. And you want it in this orientation. So the easiest way to do that is to draw where your two holes are going to be, drill the holes, countersink the inside, and then we'll rivet it on. And we'll demonstrate all this so that it makes more sense. Rivets that we'll be using are nice and small and they fit through. To countersink them, these already have a dome edge on them, come prefabricated that way. You can create your own countersink. So what you'll do is take the rivet that you'll be using, the side cuts, pinch it, and twist it. So when it cuts, it ends up putting a burr towards the bottom. So we're essentially making a small boat propeller. Then we will place this countersink on the inside of the socket and then tighten it up in the drill chuck. Usually you have longer rivets, which makes life a little bit easier. And then spin it. And I forget which way I actually made the pins on. So one way is just going to sit there and rub, the other way should be grooving into it. And then we'll loosen it up, move it to the other hole, and do it again. And on the inside, we should have created a small countersunk circle so that the head will end up setting flush with the plastic. And when you feel across it, it won't be sticking up above it. And you'll less likely have any high pressure skin breakdown in that area.